Hi, this is Jenna, and I'm doing an assignment for Public Health 330, and I'm going to be interviewing Julie and asking her some questions. So, Julie, I'm going to be completing this interview to determine some information from you on disability, your interpretation of the term, and how that affects you on a daily basis. So, can you explain how long we've known each other?
Hi, I'm Julie, just so you know I'm here. Jenna and I have been friends for like 5 years now.
I think this is good.
Yeah, yeah.
And let's see. How would you describe disability?
I would say disability is something that affects a person, obviously, but that affects their ability to do normal functions throughout the day, either easier or more difficult.
Okay, do you consider yourself disabled?
I try not to be. I try to be a functioning member of society, but I do have some um, quirks to my personality, I guess, that sometimes make it difficult to understand or speak to other people, and also makes other people perceive me, I guess, in an odd light.
My next question is, um, let's see, what is it specifically that? Well, I guess let me back up. Do you have a mental or physical disability?
So my most of my disabilities, I would say, are mental, dealing with so I have like depression, anxiety, but I also have what's called borderline personality disorder. So it's difficult for me to control changes in mood, and I also have ADHD. So it's really hard for me to get things done, stay focused, pay attention, genuinely listen to anybody when they're talking sometimes.
Yes.
I do have some physical issues, but nothing that like prevents me from working or anything.
And you're
I do have diabetes.
so you have some mental health issues. That doesn't prevent you from working.
No, but it is very, very important for me to take my medication. When I was younger, I would often try to stop taking my medication because I thought that I was smart enough to not need it, and it really has nothing to do with that. My mental health is not stable enough to function on its own, and I was making bad choices when I was off my medication.
Okay, we'll probably discuss that shortly.
Okay.
I you said that you don't really have any physical disabilities, but do you have any health concerns other that are diagnosed or not diagnosed other than diabetes, which is pretty significant?
So the diabetes, I also have a clotting disorder, so um, my blood is not thick enough, I guess, or thin enough. Sorry. So I do have to take blood thinners. So I have to be careful not to hurt myself, not to fall or anything like that, because it could be, get much more harmful and have deadly effects. Something very simple. And then I think that's it.
I think
The diabetes is kind of a chore, having to deal with blood sugar checks and insulin and meds and weight and checking it. Like that's it can be a really big chore, and it really affects everything. Your blood sugar dropping can really affect your ability to function. It can actually get really scary. And if you're driving or anything like that, it can be very dangerous.
right. So that's something that you've had to learn to manage. How long have you had any of the disabilities that we have discussed so far?
For my mental health stuff, I've really been struggling with probably since I was like 9 or 10 years old. I actually tried to unalive myself for the first time when I was only 11 years old.
This is what you are referring to as
Suicide.
suicidal ideation or
And
actual suicide attempt?
Actual attempt. I tried to overdose when I was 11 years old. And then diabetes I've only had for 2 years, but I actually ended up with diabetes because of my substance abuse issues. I drank myself into a non-functioning pancreas now. So these are unfortunately the side effects of bad choices. But I have been sober for a little over 2 years now, so, which is the first time I've been sober this long in almost 20 years, so, it's pretty amazing.
This is pretty amazing, and you're doing awesome.
Thanks.
I would like to pause right there just for anybody who's watching, or just to reaffirm with you that although you ended up making choices that you feel got you to the place of giving yourself diabetes, the factors in your life up until the point where you were diagnosed with diabetes are what impacted all of the maladaptive behavior and choices, which we're going to just cover in a few more questions. So, reaffirming that it is not your fault,
Yes.
and she is also in therapy, and
Yes.
doing positive behavior. Sorry, I'm mixing up my words. She's doing therapy and seeing practitioners and making positive changes in her life.
Yeah.
So
For the first time, I want to make positive changes, and I want to be a better person, and possibly because I've been taking my medication regularly, that things have been a little less of an emotional roller coaster since I've been sober, so it's been kind of refreshing.
is there something specific that caused you to decide to make that change?
Like the positive change?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I almost died, so, I was in the ICU, and I was, like, put into a coma and all that fun stuff, so, that's kind of like a big eye-opener that your problem is much bigger than, some people can, come home from work every day and have a drink, and so I was thinking, drinking is normal, and everybody does it because it's legal, and it's really not the case, and I was not doing it in a healthy way. I was drinking about, a liter of vodka every day, and not functioning well, so I almost killed myself. Unintentionally, yes. It was a really big eye opener to end up with pancreatitis, diabetes, all these things that could have been avoided if I had made better choices, or possibly even again if it's not necessarily my fault, possibly family predisposition and all that stuff. But yeah, I was tired of the cycle that I was repeatedly going into with the mental health issues and the substance health abuse issues. I'm getting older now, and I'm really just tired of all of it. So now I just collect cats. That's my worst addiction.
Julie, she does have 4 very cute pet kitties. So, some of the things that I'm going to ask about are substance abuse. I don't think falls under the disabled term at the moment, but
Right.
mental health concerns do, and they do overlap. So we won't get into that, the discrepancy in definition at this point in time, but understanding that those things are interrelated and go back to lots of factors, everything that overlaps from emotional health, family interaction, your social and cultural environment, all of the things affects awareness and ability to access care, and all the things we've discussed in this class. So, do you feel that the definition of disabled correlates with something negative, positive? Does that elicit any thoughts for you?
I guess, I think most people would think of it more as like a negative, but, and maybe I even did before, but now I feel like it's more like I want to prove that despite having these issues and these difficulties that many people don't have to deal with to do day-to-day life, that I can still be a productive and successful member of society.
Okay.
No matter what's wrong with me, it's like somebody who doesn't have legs, they still want to be able to function and work, so I think it's more rewarding when you're able to do those things.
Yes, and I guess kind of prove to people that you can.
Yeah.
Since there definitely, for me, I think there is a negative connotation with the idea of disability but it's changing somewhat, um, with the idea of promoting inclusivity
Mhm.
and things like that. So I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit about we're gonna just call it disability for right now. Um, we've been using that term. How would you personally? I'm not sure if I asked you specifically. How would you define what you have going on? Would you consider it a disability, a handicap, an impairment?
I think I would maybe call it more of a handicap, because it was very difficult for me to learn how to function in a healthy way and in a productive way in a professional setting. I've been, fired from jobs and, been taken the wrong way, offended people, hurt people, and it took me a while to be able to, um, do a 9 to 5 type of life, um, and be happy and, um, not offending or hurting anybody else around me.
or being self-destructive in some way?
Yeah, or being perceived incorrectly by other people.
Which is definitely difficult to do if you're working, you know, through mental health issues or any sort of disability, at any point in life. So, let's see. I have my questions listed here, so sorry, guys. Considering you have varying diagnoses, and you had mentioned a lot of mental health overlap of conditions, do you disclose this? Really, really to anyone? Does your family know? Do you have support from your family? Do you have support from your friends? And we discussed that you were already seeing some medical providers, so that part is covered.
So my family is not the most supportive. They try to be, but they're not good at it, and they're really where most of my problems stem from. So I do not rely on them, and learning that I don't need to rely on them has also been very helpful to me. Luckily, I have you and a couple of other friends that have been unbelievably supportive, and my chosen family, and I don't feel judged. I feel loved. I feel like I can be honest. And it's made a world of difference for me because I didn't really have close friends for a very long time. So definitely having support of some kind, whether it's professional or personal, is a huge factor, and also gives you somebody, like, especially with the addiction stuff, to like be accountable to, so that you don't want to relapse, because you don't want to tell them that you screwed up. Not that you think that they would judge you adversely, because you know that they wouldn't, but you want to be a good friend, and you want to be a good healthy for yourself.
These are all good bits of info for somebody listening who may be going through the same, not the same, but a similar situation. Do you mind explaining where you think some of your, or all of your health issues or struggles came from, if you know?
So like I said, a lot of it came from my family. My family was physically and verbally abusive, and really just made me feel worthless growing up, and that I wasn't important, and that I really wasn't wanted. So that didn't help, and then I ended up in a physically abusive relationship in high school, in which I got pregnant and ended up having an abortion, and that really is where I spiraled and started using drugs. And so that definitely affected my ability to like myself, and or to think that I was worthy of being loved by somebody else. And so I've just been really numbing all my self-hate and my depression and issues for so many years. And a lot of that trauma really affected the way that I was working day to day, and I was constantly seeing myself as a victim, and like just kind of being stuck in that mode. And now it's more like I'm not a victim, and I don't want to be a victim. Like, I need to be better than that for myself and the people around me. And and it's been hard. It's been really hard. It's been a lot of therapy and stuff, but and I finally feel like I'm in a healthy place, but it's been a real, real struggle, personally and professionally in my life, to maintain that. But, and I have a lot of, I had and have a lot of bad habits that were caused from those, being exposed to all that stuff, especially from a young age. And so, you know, retraining myself to not put myself in a victim state of mind has been difficult, but very rewarding.
Thank you for answering that. Um, my next question is going to be for somebody in a similar situation, or even if you were talking to yourself from right now back to say at the point when you were younger that you mentioned and feeling suicidal, like, or even when you were having issues at your late teens, early 20s, that kind of range. Do you have any advice that you would, looking back now, want to give yourself or somebody else who's in a similar situation or dealing with any mental health issue where they don't feel like they have support of any kind?
It's really really hard when you're not getting supported by the people who are around you and who, you know, are telling you that they love you. And, you know, even like I said, when I had first tried to kill myself when I was 11 years old, I ended up telling my mother that I overdosed, and she said, okay, well, I guess you're gonna have a stomach ache in the morning. And then that was the end of that. We never talked about it again. So not having support, even when you reach out and try to actually get support, I think makes things a much worse. So I would want to tell myself and anybody else that, like, your self-value really, you know, does not depend on what other people think of you. It's really what you think about yourself, and, like, you deserve love regardless, and that, you know, taking your issues out on yourself with drugs and alcohol really doesn't punish the people that you think it's punishing. You're only hurting yourself.
I think this is good advice. Maintaining really like self-identity that is linked to self-worth, and understanding that your value is not linked to anyone else.
Yeah. And if something makes you happy, that's okay. That if nobody else, it doesn't make them happy, you can still enjoy yourself.
Right, and that understanding that dealing, I guess especially when you're younger, it's a little difficult, but understanding that numbing whatever's going on, not being able to talk to people, that's not an option. You can reach out, especially if you're younger. I would say being an advocate and telling, especially younger children and teens, that they can reach out to really anyone in like their school system, their coach, if their family isn't supportive.
Yeah.
Even if their family is supportive, they can reach out to people in public education, really any adult, or even certified peer mentors.
I feel like COVID has been, like, honestly kind of a wonderful thing for mental health issues, because it's becoming more socially acceptable to say, like, I need a mental health day, or like my anxiety is high, or whatever, fill in the blank. When I feel like before, especially in my household, you were not allowed to, or not supposed to show any mental weakness to anybody, even extended family. You know, so you couldn't reach out because you didn't want people to know you were having issues, because God forbid if it reflected poorly on the family. Whereas now I can say, you know, hey, like, I'm not okay and I really need some help today. And more people seem to understand it, and you know, like, for a job, for example, if you need a mental health day, they're not going to say, well, that's not okay. They say, like, okay, cool, like, you know, you don't need to, like, be vomiting to be sick, you know.
Yeah, or I don't know, needing
Needing some like a time to reset is okay.
yeah, what is it, R&R?
Yeah.
Stress management is a thing.
Yeah.
I know that, so we did her history eval prior to this and discussed her family tree and links for the genogram, and I'm just gonna briefly bring up a few things. Just, you had mentioned when you're younger, probably till about you were 10, your family really fell in low SES, so
Yeah, we were wicked poor.
socioeconomic status category, pretty probably poverty level,
Yeah.
lack of nutrition. I remember you mentioning something maybe about oatmeal pies.
Yeah.
So certain things that we know are
A lot
very
of processed foods.
right, processed foods that are cheap, that kind of stuff.
Boxed mac and cheese and hot dogs.
Yeah, that definitely impacts development. Lack of maternal and paternal positive relationship, lack of positive example of parental interaction,
And poor communication.
or no communication. We discussed all of these things, which I'll be showing some of the connection with that in the documentation for the project. But the other links that we were talking about was with other areas of your family, and a lot of things that were showing up were other mental health concerns with a pretty large number of people in your family. Was therapy or discussing any feelings of sadness, loneliness, just like you couldn't handle life, was that even, did you even feel that was an option? Is that something that happens in your family?
No. No. Nobody ever talked about any mental health, anything, or any of that stuff. Nobody, to this day, most of my family will not even admit that they have mental health issues that very clearly do. So nobody wanted to talk about it. Nobody wanted to admit it. Like seeking help for mental health things wasn't necessarily like a taboo, but they would just think that like you'll figure it out on your own. Like you're just a teenager or whatever, and it's like no, some things are worse than just some hormonal changes.
Or maybe just like it's not in our family.
Yeah.
It seems to be a general theme you see a lot.
Yeah. And that
I don't
you
ever-
should be self-reliant and
Right.
like you shouldn't need others' resources.
Or take resources from somebody who may actually need it. It
Yeah.
seems to be an ongoing theme in a lot of families who are not well educated on the topic of mental health or disability of any kind. So those are just important bits of information to bring up, because it's familial history of a lot of substance abuse, a lot of physical, emotional, and mental abuse, and I guess you could say mental illness, depression, and other psychiatric disorders of various types, and lots of engagement in either risky, dangerous behaviors that would predispose you to potentially having these down the family tree line. So intervention at any point, at any stage of the family tree prior to getting to Julie may have helped prevent really any of these things that she has going on that have really impacted her life and changed the trajectory of it. I didn't remember to ask at the beginning, do you mind telling us how old you are and if you have any siblings and what you do for work?
So I'm 38. I feel like I'm 13 in my head. I have one older sister who I have a questionable relationship with that I maintain civility with, mostly just to be a part of my niece's lives. And I am actually a nurse, and I'm a very good one.
How long have you been a nurse?
15 years.
That I should have asked those things at the beginning, but I forgot. Also, I'm not sure if I had you clarify, does, do the, conditions or, illness and disability that you have going on in your life, does it affect, we're gonna call it activities of daily living here, basically covering everything? Because you mentioned that, while you were using substances, right, you were drinking quite a lot, but did that impact your ability to eat? Did you, forego eating instead of in place because you were drinking? Or these are my questions, like, did you not, you were working, so you were able to function, or at least were a relatively high functioning, substance user, but also since you mentioned having, some pretty significant, mental health, ongoing mental health, concerns that you're able to manage, do have these impacted your ability to function daily? And was there anything, or is there anything that you do to aid in your functioning previously and now?
So I would say, yes, definitely. My biggest thing would probably be, when I worked in the hospitals, I was having so much anxiety prior to going into each shift that, I wanted to call out, and often did, because it would become almost, like paralyzing. Um, and so then I would, numb myself with drugs, to avoid that. Um, um, I am, I was a very, very high functioning addict. I mean, I was running an emergency room, I worked in the ICU, I did a lot of things. So I was very controlled in my use. I never, unintentionally overdosed or, woke up from a stupor days later or anything like that. It was just enough to numb the pain and stuff. But I would not eat when I was drinking so that I could get drunk faster. So not because I either couldn't afford it and or didn't want to, it was mostly just because I wanted to be more messed up. And having no food in your system means it happens easier and faster. So I would kind of, I guess, torture my own body in the sake of, a good buzz.
Yeah, I was just say being high, being intoxicated,
Yeah.
Whatever you'd like to call it, but that covers answering my question. I was also wondering, like, so looking at it from other disability or other, it's depending on the terminology you want to use. Like, did you ever not do your laundry, like, because you were drinking? Did you ever not, take care of your animals because you were drinking? Things like that is what I'm, I guess, defining as, food, cleanness,
Oh, yeah.
housing, all that stuff. You never didn't have a house.
Yeah, so like I said, I was pretty high functioning. I've always been able to pay my bills. I've never been in debt. I've never stolen from anybody. I've been, I guess, lucky in that aspect. But I definitely have had many days where I would not get out of bed, where I would not bathe, I would not brush my teeth, I would not do any type of self-care. And doing so just felt like such a chore and so much extra work.
And this is not just related to substances.
No, this is a lot of the mental health stuff also, yeah. Yeah, just kind of getting out of your own way, getting things done, feeling like you're just walking in circles. It's very debilitating, and now there's a term for it called rotting in bed, when you don't leave bed for a day or days, either because your mental health issue is, flaring up, or maybe because you just want to be lazy, which is fine. But I used to work 3 days a week, and I would spend almost every second of the other 4 days in bed. And I would not talk to anybody. I wouldn't communicate with anybody. I would just be in my own head, avoiding responsibilities and relationships.
And you're currently not in a relationship, or are?
I am not in any type of romantic relationship, and I have found that has also, I believe, helped me to stay sober, because I don't have any emotional turmoil or anyone affecting my mental health or my image of myself. So I have honestly never been happier being single and a cat lady.
And she's a cat lady is what she said. I couldn't really hear, but I'm clarifying because she's a cat lady. How do you think, because we had said your family wasn't that supportive, you said you do have some friends who definitely are. Have any of your significant others, prior to now being single, impacted your mental health or substance use positively, negatively, or I know you just said that you haven't been more happier or really healthier, if you could, call it that. Like your mental health is in a good place right now that you're single. So I guess my question is
Single and sober.
Single and sober. So, yes. I was wondering. I don't know. We're not gonna discuss how many relationships you have, but were your relationships impactful?
So, romantic relationship wise?
I guess you could briefly cover either. Either, as if you're, not being in a relationship is a thing now, and just having relationships that are either platonic or not.
So I've never had a emotionally or physically healthy romantic relationship. I've either been emotionally or physically abused by everyone I've been in a relationship with, and I got to take some blame for that too, because I let them do it for longer than they should have, and I also didn't have very good friends. I was in a lot of even friendship relationships with people who were very one way, who I was giving all of my time and my energy to, who would not return even, coming over to my house. So getting all of those people out of my life has been great for me. But
it took you a while to realize that, and
and to find my own self-worth enough that I deserve better than that. And having you as a friend and a couple of other people, have really helped me to see that I am good enough as I am. I'm lovable as I am. I don't need to do anything fancy or funky, and I deserve to be, loved and returned by the people around me, and I can choose the people who are around me. I don't have to be stuck with family or boyfriends or whatever who are jerks.
So I think that's a really good point, because in a lot of the things we've discussed for this class, specific to family systems, approach, among other things, really rely heavily on the family bond and family connection, social connection. But if your familial context and the context of the relationships is negative and harming you, you're not obligated to keep your relationships with your family. I feel like that's a good point, because a lot of the material we've discussed really focuses on how positive family can be, which is true, and it is important. And when you're missing those positive bonds and relationships, whether it's with your family, friends, socially, culturally, all of those things really affects your development, but it doesn't define you. And you're able to say no. You're able to say no. I'm going to disconnect myself from an environment or people who are causing me harm or are not benefiting me personally. You don't have to sit and be a part of that.
And you don't have to really defend your decisions either. People, just for example, my father thinks that because he provided for us financially, that we had a great life, but he doesn't remember or seem to realize the significance of telling your child that they're a worthless piece of poop.
I was just saying patooey.
Repeatedly throughout your adolescence. So, I don't need to defend myself to him. I don't need to validate to him why he has been toxic to me. I can just push him out and be okay with it. I don't need to tell anybody why or defend myself as to why it's not good for me mentally. That's enough of a reason.
Okay, so now that we covered that, my interview, I understand is a little bit different than a lot of the more adaptive things we're discussing in this class, but because the definition of disability or impairment or handicap all encompass such broad things. This is the direction I'm taking my project in. I have a few other questions for you. Um, a lot of the questions I had designed really were more focused on the materials we had discussed in the class and had to do more with full-time care, or if you needed a caregiver. And clearly, Julie does not need a home caregiver. She does not need somebody who gives full-time care. I personally don't know anyone currently who does need that, except for in the line of work that I do. That's what I was doing, providing care. So I have had to modify some of my questions a bit because we're also not discussing a child. Like, you know, we're, instead of interviewing an adult about a child or asking a child about their interpretation, where you know, social services or human services may be involved, or specialized care may be coming. We're at a different point in like the care spectrum, or the things that the way where we're at in care and understanding what's going on. So I guess more of my questions are going to be focused on how you feel, how you interpret things, and what you'd like to see change in regard to the way other people really the generalized opinion on mental health disorders, whether it be depression, bipolar, schizophrenia, any of the things you could possibly think of. Do you feel like they're all lumped together? And do you think that you should have like a more individualized classification for what you're dealing with, or not? It's an interesting question. Most people really don't get asked what they think, how they feel, or what terms they would like to be used. So it's a difficult question. You may not have a full answer off the top of your head.
I feel like a big thing about it is just like general, like societal, um, poor education, not enough education, whatever. Like just for example, like I feel like people toss around the word depression a lot, like just to mean like that you're sad, like if somebody died, and it's like, no, it's normal to feel sad if somebody died. It's not normal to feel like somebody died every single day of your life, even though nothing has happened. And it's not normal to, you know, want to end your own life because of something very small and minor that happens throughout the day. And having these type of, emotional and mental reactions is, the real problem. So I feel like, that people overuse a lot of the terminology without really knowing what it means. And people, if somebody goes from being happy to mad quickly, somebody will say that they're bipolar, and it's like, no, they're not. Like, they're just having
Angry?
an emotional response, which is okay, so throwing around a lot of the terminology, I feel like has really desensitized people to how severe that these things can really be, and how much they can really affect your ability to function, even if you're able to smile and get out of bed in the morning. That doesn't mean that everything's okay.
Right. So let's see. So your overall well-being and mental health right now are you're doing pretty good, but throughout, like, say, school, elementary, middle, high school, college, how was that impacted by any of the things you're dealing with?
So I was not only being belittled by my family at home, I was also being bullied pretty severely at school. So I was constantly feeling like I was being judged, that I wasn't enough, that there was something wrong with me. I really had a hard time developing relationships with anybody at all. Go ahead.
Yeah, I shouldn't have interrupted you. I was just trying to think of how would you suggest, like, especially being bullied now, being bullied and traumatized by other children or even adults at
Coworkers,
school,
yeah.
school work,
Yeah.
there's a little more open conversation about it now, but like you said, so you're 38,
Yeah.
right? So back then, really, it wasn't, because I'm 36. I couldn't tell you, like, a bully was just like, okay, that's a thing, deal with it. Um, do you have any suggestions for how to have better communication, or like maybe teach someone? It doesn't really matter the age range. Any of the times where you were struggling or being bullied or having issues forming relationships, other than changing the evaluation of your own self-worth, which is pretty difficult if you don't know how to do it. Do you have any suggestions for creating a more open um, conversation, right? Making someone feel empowered to be able to go to an adult or someone else to ask for help, or just feel like it's okay.
I think it's really hard now with social media, because you're being potentially judged by even strangers around you, and not even just the people who are closest to you. Um, so for me, a big part of helping myself was getting off of social media, and so I would not compare myself to other people's lives and all that stuff. Um, but honestly, I can't imagine like trying to grow up in this technology world right now, because I think I would not be successful. But I think like making it okay that like you can reach out and like find your people, like people who are like minded to you, people who enjoy what you enjoy, that like you don't have to like what everybody else around you likes, and you don't have to like hang out with the cool kids or the popular clicky group or whatever it is that um it's okay to be quirky, and like just because you don't think or do things the way that everybody else does doesn't mean that you're not an awesome person. And so contrary to what I just said, again, the having social media could be great for that, where you could find people who I don't know, like to knit or whatever, just for an example. But you can find your people, and you can find people that there are mental health groups, there are substance abuse groups, there are there's even things for people who just don't have a lot of friends and just want somebody to text with now. So I think like at the same time, now you can reach out and you can find those resources, and you can really build like your own environment of good people around you. And like they should like encourage people to do that more, and that like just because like you're not friends with Susie high school or whatever, that doesn't mean that you're not going to have a freaking awesome life.
So, how would you define accessibility?
Hmm. So, I mean, there's like the physical accessibility stuff, which is, like handicap ramps and all that stuff. But I think, like, so for example, I had a really hard time creating boundaries with like my professional peers. And so like I either got in trouble and or burned by some of my coworkers for trusting people or whatever, and or for getting too personal too fast with people. So I feel like making things more accessible so that like I can say, hey, like this is wrong with me, and I shouldn't need a doctor's note to tell you that this is wrong with me. I think that should really be like a big thing. Like I can tell you, I don't need a doctor to tell you that I have issues with physical affection, and that like I don't get enough of it in my personal life, so maybe I seek it out in the wrong places. And and I feel like I should be able to tell you that there's something wrong with me without needing a prescription pad to tell you that there's something wrong with me, and that should make it okay.
Well, that it is okay to have something, let's say, in quotes, wrong with you, because you fall outside the definition of what normalized
Yeah.
things are, but no one's normal.
Yeah.
It's just a socially constructed term, just like everything else. So working within the defined terms that have been assigned to whatever condition you have, there's lots of negativity associated with anything that falls without like perfectly healthy or optimally functioning, etc. I guess like so we're talking about accessibility, right? I was thinking also like mental health, like say mental health in the workplace even. It, I guess like expressing the fact that you have a mental health issue or aren't necessarily doing and functioning at your optimal level shouldn't be a concern for people. You should be able to have days where you're not 100% but can express that and don't need to worry about the fact that you're gonna get reported or you have to go see HR or you can't have a couple hours off or
Yeah. Or like if something upset you, like you should be able to cry. You shouldn't have to like go in your car and feel sorry for yourself. You should be able to have your emotions. You should be able to, you know, be a human being and not be criticized adversely. You know, like I may have some stuff wrong with me, you know, but some of these things that are wrong with me make me super efficient and super thorough, and so I might also be a phenomenal worker and also
and a better care provider.
yeah, and I'm super empathetic, and so you know I can really relate with a lot of my patients because of a lot of the things that I've been through, and it's made me better at my job. But if I were to say to an employer, hey, I have all these things wrong with me, they would be like, well, we don't want you, you know.
Right, because they're not supposed to be able to discriminate based on these things, but we know there's innate bias present in all aspects of life. So that is something that society is needing to work on. But I guess from my perspective, right, even though I'm not interviewing myself, that's where my desire to take this class and focus on things came from, because I also have disabilities and things that I have to work through, and people do judge you. And even though there's been a large movement of, you know, more positivity towards people who are dealing with neurodivergent or mental health or substance abuse or chronic illness, really anything you could think of that falls outside the definition of 100% healthy, you know, most successful or I don't know. The terms for success vary, and all of these things overlap and provide the terms for disability, ability, function, and whatnot. And feeling confined or trapped is never a great feeling, but also knowing that the way a lot of people in society have been taught, whether intentionally or not, has created a kind of like an understanding that, you know, disability or dysfunction in some way is wrong or less than or makes you not as worthy, but reminding people that just because you function differently doesn't mean that you're
Wrong.
yeah, you're not wrong, and it's not a deficit. It doesn't have to be. You can adapt and find a way to make that work for you and work within the environment that we live in, or whatever environment you find yourself in. So, optimism and positivity and teaching confidence in yourself, even in difficult situations, is really important for anyone who's dealing with any issue or condition that, you know, may cause you to feel less than because of what the way society defines things, or you know, just even things you can't control, like chemical changes and you're depressed, right? You taking medication is not, it's not I don't want to say a problem. It's not
Not like a crutch.
it's not something you should have to be worried about. It's not, if you want to disclose things about yourself, you should be able to. I love to be open. I love to tell anybody my story about all of the things that have happened in my life, and usually people find it inspiring rather than overwhelming. But I have seen in life that usually people do not like to share a lot of their experiences or the fact that they have a mental health disorder, which I do. I'm chronically, I have pretty severe depression among other things, but having a chronic illness puts you in a position where you function differently, you adapt differently, you work differently within your environment and deal with things in a different way. So again, it doesn't mean that I'm less than, but I'm not sure where all of my resiliency and confidence and self-worth came from. It probably is from my mom, but I've really never had any issues in those areas. I think for like as far as accessibility and adaptability, things like that go, it's really not well promoted. Access to mental health care, stress reduction, even talking about the issues that you have is not something that is even now really expressed. I don't feel like
And
enough.
I think it should be more like, I've overcome a lot of crap and a lot of, hard stuff in my life. And it's okay for me to be proud of myself for all the things that I've made it through and still come out the other side. And, like, I can learn the lessons and I can, build relationships and I can be okay and I can, know when to say no now and I can know, if I don't want these people in my life, that's okay.
And it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah, it's okay to have a bad day.
I think the idea of disability, like just like wrapping up some thoughts on this from my perspective, I have issue with the term disability, but also do not. It's kind of this strange dichotomy of definition in my brain because I do associate it with negativity because of the way it has been forced upon me, but I don't think of me having a disability or someone else having a disability as negative. So I am able to interpret, someone who does not have a disability or currently an issue or health concern, a lot of the time to me seems like there's a negative connotation, whereas for me, I'm proud of the fact that I, like Julia was saying, right, have overcome so many things, and it has made me a empathetic, caring, and compassionate person, really, to almost any situation I could come across, which is why I'm wanting to go into nursing. But really, just understanding terminology and then being able to restructure it and offering more services to people to be able to be open and communicate more effectively and build stronger family relationships or friendships or social interaction or take advantage of community programs really has been one of the things that I've learned throughout this course is that those things have to change, because we know that if you had been able to access mental health care sooner, more than likely you would have been able to develop positive adaptive behaviors to deal with your stress, or been able to get medication sooner for mental health concerns. Things like that should have never been an issue, that unfortunately were. Could have been
supported.
Right, could have been mitigated through the ability to communicate openly, really with anyone, and understanding that that is even possible. So promotion of the idea of open communication and not something negative being a result of sharing these things would be my suggestion on the things that need to change. But other than that, is there anything that I didn't ask you that you think would be important to share in regard to your situation, or really anything to do with disability?
I think a big part for me was learning that other people's ideas of normal, I shouldn't let that determine my life. just for example, I'm a 38-year-old female, right? So people think, you should be married, you should have kids, you should do this, you should do that. And so I was always putting pressure on myself for those things, when, like, it's okay for me to be single, it's okay for me to be a cat lady. These things make me, I know I keep bringing it up, but, like, these things make me really happy now, and, like, that's okay. Just, like, find joy, and, like, it's okay if it's not, a white picket fence and, 2.5 children or whatever. Like, whatever makes you happy is okay, as long as you're happy, because that's so hard to find.
Right. And happiness is also, people's idea of what they think happy should be.
Yeah.
It's really everything is defined by what we're thinking other people think we should be, whereas you can just be.
Yeah,
you can
you can
exist,
find your joy.
and this would be a really good way to change ideology associated with negativity or positivity in relation to disability or impairment, and really any concerns with overall well-being, right? So other than that, is there anything else you think that we should add, or things that would be good to address in the future when talking to other people about any difficulties they're having or disabilities they may have?
I can't think of anything like too much. I just think that generally, if disability was even covered more of a variety and wide range of things, and was more
Maybe discussing it in
yeah,
like elementary, all of the levels of school, because we talked about health for like one course, right, when you're in high school, but like,
and making it easier as an adult professional to
Mhm.
have these things, and, like, you don't have to walk around with your suit on all the time. That you can let your hair down, so to say, and it's okay. Like, we can't all be at top notch all the time, and, like, putting on a fake show isn't really, nobody's winning in that situation, and, like, it should be okay to be human and
Yeah,
have
so
emotions.
just be who you are and accept the things that you can, find meaning in your situation, right? Focus on positive relationships you do have, and understand what constitutes maybe a negative relationship. Maybe teaching people about that would also be good, so people understand, like, especially when you're younger, when to speak out, when to know that something's detrimental, or even understand that some of the behaviors they're doing may be negative. You don't always know. Like, if you don't know and don't know to talk about it, you don't know to reach out. I mean, an example that doesn't have to do with disability would be like having a headache. It's really hard to describe something like that. And when you're younger, the first time you get a headache, you may say something, right? But you may not, because you're like, well, I don't know, I guess everybody gets this. Or, I don't know, why would I say it? People might think I'm weird. And just normalizing, making it normal to speak your mind or say what you have going on.
And it's okay to complain if you need to complain.
Right. It really, anything, just understanding that you can be you. There's nothing wrong with that. And that whether you're disabled or handicapped or have a chronic illness or have a mental health concern or any other thing that you could think of, and even if you are the definition of perfectly normal, this is allowed, but you don't need to, like, understanding that innate bias and the way we've been taught affects our judgment of other people, and being aware that those things affect other people in a way that's pretty profound, and just being more open to it's like a narrative approach, right? Understanding from, like, I may not ever be able to understand things from how Julie experienced life, but I can try. I can have a better understanding and, like, perspective from her.
Respect that your normal's not my normal.
Right, and understand from her, try to understand from her experience by asking her, how do you feel, what is going on, and creating a space for that open communication, for when people don't know how to communicate. It will also be really instrumental in promoting change in the idea of disability, or changing the way people view all of the topics relating to providing better health care. So that was my interview. I covered most of the things we're supposed to talk about, and I thought it was important to interview her and discuss overlapping things, and I really appreciate you taking the time to do the interview with me, and I hope you guys learned something, and that's it.
Thanks for
That's-
listening to my
yeah.
stuff.
Thanks, guys.